Okay, it is 7 p.m. We are here to have our town council special meeting, Monday, April 6, 2026. Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
James Morelli. Here. Tony Morrison.
Here.
Christopher Palmieri. Josh Serafino.
Here.
David Zoni. Jennifer Clark.
Here.
Michael Del Santo.
Present.
Kristen Gaida. Paul Chaplinsky.
Here, we have a quorum. We have 6 members of the council. We had a few members who were absent, which we talked about at our last meeting. If everybody can please stand for the prayer and the flag salute.
Dear Heavenly Father, we come to you this evening asking for your direction and guidance. Keep us focused tonight on what is best for Southington and her people. Amen.
Amen. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, so just a little bit of housekeeping. We're going to start off, item number 2, Town Council Public Hearing on 2026-2027 Board of Finance Proposed Budget. And just to tee it up a little bit here, Chairperson Leary from the Board of Finance is going to give us a 10 or 15 minute. He promised me no more than 15 minutes.
50.
So if somebody can start the timer, Madam Clerk, you could put them on the timer, please. Just again, some housekeeping. This is the beginning of the public hearing process. Town Council has just gotten this budget from the Board of Finance. What we're going to do today is we're recording this video because we do have a few council members who are not here today. As previously announced in the last couple months, today's meeting is just the opening salvo for the Town Council. What we plan to do is open this public hearing, and at the end of tonight, we plan to keep the public hearing open. We will not be closing the public hearing. There will not be any action on the budget tonight, and we will take up the public hearing at a later meeting of the Town Council during one of our regularly scheduled Town Council meetings. In the past few years, we've received some feedback from the community that there wasn't enough time during the beginning of a regular Town Council meeting, and so what we did was we decided to start it with a special meeting where this was the only agenda item. So there's no other agenda items except this tonight. And what we will do is, it looks like April 27th, we will continue this. Part of the reason for April 27th is also that we have some state funding that is in the legislative process right now. So our hope is that we will also have an opportunity to talk to our delegation and find out how the funding is looking at the state level and what that impact might be to the municipalities. We did receive a note already from the town manager this past week that some state funding information started to come through. We know we've lost a little bit more than $7,000 from the state this upcoming budget cycle so far. We just don't know what the impact of that will be. We know it's going to be close to the first week of May when we have to make our final decision on the budget, which we expect to do during that first week of May. I think it's May the 11th, maybe, Alex? First meeting in May is when we anticipate we would be taking action on the budget. So from now until then, end of April, we'll be hearing from the public in the open public hearing session. We'll allow, after Mr. Leary, 5 minutes for every person who wants to come on up and talk tonight. And then again, we'll keep the public hearing open and we can do this again at the end of April. We are using a digital note taker here, so we're going to try this tool to see how well it takes notes and see if it's something that we want to continue to pursue in the future or not. Okay, so the floor is yours, Chairman Leary.
What I'll do is I'll move quickly through the slides at your request. If you do have a problem, just raise your hand, or I'll pause. We'll ask if you have a question or you want to look at one a little more closely. Okay, if not, I'll be expeditious and go through these. So we're here for the 2026-2027 budget. It begins on July 1, and the fiscal year is July 1 to June 30th. Couple high-level understandings of where we are as a country, a state, and a town. From a national level, there are household financial pressures. When families are paying more to just carry their debt and cover essentials, every budget decision we make lands more heavily on them. Credit card debt is at 1.3 trillion. It remains elevated, with households carrying higher balances at higher interest rates than they were last year, the year before, and since 2022. And we're up 5.5% in credit card debt year over year. Inflation has cooled, but it's not reversed. It's cumulative. So price levels for the essentials like food, utilities, housing remain significantly higher than before the pandemic. Borrowing costs remain high, with mortgage rates, auto loans, and personal loans well above the long-term averages. Personal savings have thinned, especially for middle-income households, increasing sensitivity to tax changes and service disruptions. Why does it matter for Southington? Residents are more financially stretched, making them less tolerant of tax increases. Household strain increases demand for predictable, stable municipal services, and local economic activity can soften when families redirect their income towards their own debt service. Some federal risks. When Washington pays $1 trillion a year in interest, the entire country pays through higher borrowing costs. The total federal debt is around $39 trillion. Held by the public, municipal bonds is federal bonds, $31.4 trillion. Debt to GDP is at 101%, the highest level since World War II, and the trajectory, we're expected to exceed $40 trillion, within the decade, but we're getting awfully close. Debt service is $1 trillion, which is almost greater than the whole defense budget. Interest is now the third largest federal spending category. The cost of carrying the debt, the average interest rate on federal debt has risen to 3.3%, up sharply. Why does this matter for Southington? Well, higher federal borrowing will result in higher long-term interest rates, elevated rates, municipal borrowing costs, mortgage costs, and business financing costs. It pushes the cost of borrowing, cost of capital up for everyone. Federal fiscal instability adds inflation and market volatility and risk that flow into local budgeting. Connecticut has built a strong reserve position, but with a $35 billion pension burden and volatile revenues, the towns must budget conservatively. So the fiscal year 2026, the state is predicting a $6 million deficit. That's not huge for a whole state, but it's still a deficit. Revenue volatility, corporate tax revenues revised down $75 million, income tax refunds up $50 million. Rainy day fund, at statutory cap of 4.3, 18% of general fund appropriations, it's expected to temporarily reach $6.1 billion. Long-term obligations, the unfunded pension liability in the state remains the time bomb for Connecticut. It's among the highest burdens relative to state revenue, nationally, the percent of our debt. Structural risk, Connecticut's tax base is dependent on the high-income earners and the capital market performance. That's where the state makes its money. You lose a few people, we have serious hurt in the state level. Why does this matter? State aid is sensitive to market swings and high-income taxpayer performance. Pension and other post-employment benefit pressure can crowd out municipal support in downturns. Conservative budgeting protects Southington from aid reductions and mid-year adjustments. So, getting now down into the town, we have revaluation. Without going too deep into it, there's plenty I said on the topic, but every 5 years we have to revalue our property. The reason we do it is fairness, because you're going to take the budget we're going to talk about and you're going to spread it to the people of the town based upon how much property they own, the value of that property. So you want to make sure the value of that property is accurate. So what you do is you revalue it. You look at the market, you look at the property, and you assign a market rate to the property, which is supposed to be fair. But in all fairness, what happened when we tried to be fair, and it is fair, is that the smaller homes were higher in demand, and the smaller homes increased more than commercial, industrial, and the larger homes, sometimes a lot more. And that pushes more of the tax to those homes. Just remember that revaluation is never intended to garner the town a penny more. What it does is it just sets the basis by which the amount of money needed to run the town, a determined amount of money, is spread to its taxpayers. So usually when revaluation happens, everything goes up pretty much the same. and nobody's affected any differently. And if revaluation doubled every property, the mill rate would be cut in half. So we did have the valuation did significantly raise the property values, and the mill rate did go down. But the problem is, within that revaluation, the commercial, industrial, business property did not increase as much as the residential, forcing more of the tax burden onto the residential property, and furthermore, onto the smaller, more modest residential property. Small multifamilies, condos, small homes. Could talk about that. Okay, the budget we have before you is a budget of $196 million. The taxes needed to fund it are $162.7 million. That's the amount that's going to get spread over the taxpayers based upon how much property they own. The tax increase being proposed from the Board of Finance to the Town Council is 5.9% increase over last year's taxes. The mill rate goes from 32.8 to 23.75. The mill rate is just the rate multiplied by the grand list that gets you the $162.7 million. So it's really grand list dependent. You can see here, if you look at the grand list, it was $3.9 billion for real estate. Now it's up to $5.9 billion. The grand list moved 53.7%. If your house or property increased 53.7%, you're in line with the grand list, and the mill rate adjusts, and you're roughly in the same place. But if your property increased more than 53.7%, you're likely going to pay a greater share of the taxes. We can talk about that, but I'm racing here because I got to limit myself. Motor vehicles are what they are, and personal property is really not personal property. It's called that, but it's business property. I call it pizza ovens. It's property used in the engagement of business. Couple things for us. Little facts that help with the budget: 44,000 people. Employees is a big number. We have 1,453 employees, with 1,190 in the Board of Ed. We have 6,079 students. As of October 2025, our credit rating through two agencies is Standard & Poor's AA+, Moody's AA2. Those are one rating below the perfect rating, and we don't really desire the perfect rating because we don't want to get it and lose it, get it and lose it. We like to stay one below it, and our debt is roughly the same cost. We don't have a real advantage to pursuing AAA. Our reserves, our unassigned fund balance at 6/30/24, the last audited point, was 33 million, 17%, and our policy is 11%. So our policy says, our self-written policy says keep 21.4, and we had 33. Our debt is at 114.4 million. It is down from last year. Again, it's a 6/30/24 number because that's the last audited point, the last stake in the ground until this new audit comes out. Our limit is 7 times tax receipts, so we are at 10% of our borrowing limit, which means we're still a conservative town. We're only borrowing at 10% the amount we're permitted to borrow at. Our grand list is $6.8 billion, which you just saw, and our annual budget is $196 million. Those are just some facts to help set things. 2026 budget overview. Total general fund budget, $196 million. Education operations, $126.8 million, up $4.9 million, or 4%. General government, $56.5 million, up $3.2 million, or 6%. Debt service, $12.7 million, down $548,000. That's the service on our municipal bonds, the principal and interest. Animal control is a separate fund, $198,000. Sewer, $6.8 million, another separate fund. And year one of a 5-year capital plan, $8 million. We'll break it out in a minute. The mill rate goes from 32.8 to 23.75, down 9 mills. Don't read too much into that because, again, it's based on the grand list. You can't compare mill rates across towns. A lot of people say, well, somewhere else the mill rate is 20. It doesn't matter. It depends on what's on. It's a simple division of your grand list and the amount of taxes you need to run your town. Okay. Revenue, where does our revenue come from? Property tax will bring in the most at $162.5 million. It's calculated last, unlike household income where you figure out what your income is, and this works backwards. State grants from education, $21.2 million. State grants for the towns, mostly TAR grants for the roads, $1.9 million. Investment income, $4.3 million. We have no federal grants. Fund balance utilized, $1.6 million. That's taking money from the bank and utilizing it. Town service fees and other bring in $4.5 million. That's why the $196 million budget, we only need $162.5 only from the taxpayers, because the rest comes from somewhere else. Expenses in the budget, $56.4 million. If you don't deal with millions, it's kind of hard to wrap your head around this. It's hard to know what a million is, but it is, so I have to go through it. So $56.4 million public safeties, $18.3 million for police and fire. Fringe benefits are expensive for us at $14.8 million. This is just the general government side, not the Board of Ed. Public Works, $7.1 million. General government, all the offices, the finance office, the town clerk, when you squish them all together, $6.9 million. Capital expenditures that are going to be cash funded, $2.9 million of the $8 million mentioned earlier. Health and Human Services, Community Services, Youth Services, Calendar House, $2.1 million. The library, $1.8 million. Planning and Development, $1.1 million. Those are the land use departments. There's a contingency of $1.1 million, and then there's recreation, $400,000. Capital expenses, here's the $8 million. Capital is a little tricky, and a lot of people on council, even as early as tonight, are asking, let's talk about capital. So of the $8 million is year one of a 5-year capital plan. So it was approved, and now it's a recommendation. So cash funded with the 2026 money is $852,000. Sidewalk repair, that's the reimbursement for sidewalks. A brine system to put liquid salt on the roads, $205,000. A highway parks vehicle, like one pickup truck, $62,000. Panthorn Park field lights, $55,000. And a mower, $30,000. That's cash funded piece. Next one, cash funded with 2027 money. That's budgeted money. $608,000. South End Road Bridge, East Street reconstruction, the scuba, the whatever it is, breathing apparatus for the fire department, self-contained breathing apparatus, $80,000. IT infrastructure, that's parts, hardware, $25,000. The assessor's office, a little update in the office with some rug and some painting to keep in line with some of the other offices that got tuned up, take them out of the 50s. Cash funded by transfers, $691,000. These transfers are money that was not spent in the year. It gets reallocated. The police, this is different. Transfers from another fund. The police flock cameras, $98,000. Police radios, $463,000. Police body cameras, $130,000. Grant funded. Grants, typically state grants, the LoCIP for the local capital improvements, $425, the road aid, $695, and a portion of the Calendar House bus. They get a new bus every so many years, $122,000 we have to pay, and the rest is, or it's grant, we get a grant for the $122. Excess rainy day fund, that was some excess that we take out, we call it fund balance utilized. The Board of Ed athletic field, $793, this is the tennis courts, parking lot, and fix the parking up around the high school project, $793 from this year's budget. IT, some more IT infrastructure, $300,000. Townwide Americans with Disability Act sidewalks and ramps, $250,000, and a highway truck, a big dump truck for the highway department, $250,000 buys us one truck. Bond funded, $3 million. Roofing projects, those are the roofing projects. We have to put roofs on the buildings, $3 million. Getting into some staffing. People ask, well, tell me about the staffing. Board of Ed, full-time equivalents, 1,189.8. They use points. Somebody could have a 0.5 job or a 0.2. So it adds up to 1,189.8. General government, there are 263 of them, but this budget moves that to 267.5. So this budget will bring on 2 police officers, 1 building official, 1 finance person. We cut last year and then had to reinstate after the need came back. Library, bringing on a +1, which is 2 part-time employees that add together to 1. IT, adding in an intern, half a person intern, and animal control goes down 1. The police goes up 2, animal control goes down 1. That's our 4.5 in the recommendation. Board of Ed staffing, they provided some staffing levels. The 2023 at 1136, 2024 at 1164, then 1189 and 1194, and they could show you over time. The slides are here, and I'll make sure they somehow get in the minutes. Board of Ed budget bridge, it's important. Chairman Oshana of the Board of Ed had talked about the process a lot, where it starts in the schools and works its way up to the superintendent, and then up to the Board of Ed, then to the Board of Finance. But 2025-26, the current year, this current Board of Ed is at 121.9 million, and then you add in existing salaries negotiated to go up 3.8 million. Most of this is the same stuff we're doing today, doing it next year for several million more. So existing salaries up 3.8 million, health insurance goes up 1.7 million, out-of-town tuition up 700,000, busing up 400,000, new personnel up 300,000, technology up 200,000, extended school year 200,000, utilities up 100,000, and some other stuff up $1 million, the MERS, municipal employee retirement, taxes, supplies, legal services. So the superintendent's budget went up 8 million, goes up to 130,299,000, up 6.89%. Then the Board of Education got a hold of it. They approved it at 6.71%. Then Board of Finance came along, adjusted self-insurance contribution, the use of reserves, so we were able to reduce it 1.7 million, which doesn't really affect anything. It just affects the use of the self-insurance reserves and lowers the run rate on what the employees pay and what the town pays for insurance based upon the trend. And then a non-specific reduction of 1.6 million to the Board of Ed. So Board of Finance recommends 126.8 or 4.2% increase. Same deal on the general government side. Town manager proposed at 201, Board of Ed operations, 3.2 million, and then general government, 2.38 million adjusted, so we reduced self-insurance, we reduced the police budget, we reduced their overtime, a vehicle, an animal control officer, reduced the fire budget, removing 3 firefighters, delayed the assistant chief 8 months, reduced the library 82,000. There was a new headcount request. It got removed, so it's not an existing person. It was a request for a person that is getting denied in this recommendation. Reduced capital 300,000 for the bleachers, reduced capital 500,000 for 2 things, a fire automation system, a firehouse automation system, and 1 dump truck, roughly 250 each. Other 149, just some reductions across the board, Corporation Council 20, accumulated payout for retirees 25, a capital adjustment of 100. So Board of Finance, we reduced the budget 5.7 million, and reduces property tax, reduces fund balance utilized, and we recommend a budget 5.7 million over last year's budget, or 196 million. Getting to the end, Paul. Forward-looking projects and needs. These are things the Board of Finance was discussing and debating. We said we cannot overlook these, and we asked council to, and we'll continue to ask council to look at these. The fire department, the service levels, the staffing, and the cost. We have to look at this. We have to come to some understanding of where we are with the fire department. What level of service does the town want? What's the staffing level that goes with that? And what's the cost? And we have to solve that. That's an unsolved piece. The 3-school solution, we're working on that over time, but it's really the deal with Flanders, Kelly, and Daranowski, the Karen Smith Academy, called 3.5 school solution. But we have to continue to deal with that and resolve it, and I know we're doing that. The high school athletic fields was shot down in referendum. It doesn't mean do nothing, but we still need a solution as things start to degrade up there. The school roofs are coming along. These are schools we like to think in our head were recently renovated, but in reality, they're over 20 years since the renovation. So our newer schools are coming up on roofs and HVAC issues, and the high school renovation. These are things that are on the horizon that council has to look forward and solve. Couple other things, some considerations, possibly a separate line item for the rainy day fund at 11%. Every time spending goes up $1, we need to go up 11% reserves. We don't have that as a budgeted item. So what happens is we run a surplus by design, use that surplus to bump up the reserves. It's kind of a backdoor way of doing it. We probably want to have a line item in there specific to the rainy day fund, so that when we do budget, every dollar we budget, we add to the budget, we add 11 cents to the reserve, so we never miss. Couple synergy opportunities, things that came up in discussion. Can we partner with the Board of Ed in certain areas? Just a couple to mention. Human resources, maintenance. Can we, there may be others, but can we look for synergies with the Board of Ed on certain things where we can partner and each pay a share and maybe get a higher level of service at a more reasonable cost or something? Self-insurance assessment. Do we need a new carrier? Do we need to not just look at what we've always been doing, but to really look at self-insurance, look at the offerings we're given, look at that state plan, look at other options? Do we move away from Anthem to Cigna? There's possibly opportunity there, but we have to explore it, and we have to explore it before we get to the next budget, and there's no time to deal with it. Another question that keeps coming up is the Barnes Museum, to determine its future and funding strategy. I mean, I would say from Board of Finance, if we're gonna have it, we should have it and do it right. And if we're not gonna have it, then we don't have it. But it's hard to have it and not do it right. And I think people feel that in the community. We have it, but it has a lot of needs. That's it. So if there's any question, I'll take any questions and slide back to any slide.
So from the dais, anybody here have questions for the chairman? Tony.
Just quickly, yeah, thanks.
Tony Morrison for the AI note taker.
Yes. Thanks, Chairman. I really appreciate it. It's a very good presentation of what you did. You pointed out the issue with the revaluation. And we've got two spending things here. One is the overall increase now, which is the highest we've had for a long, long time, even with these cuts. Adjustments.
Adjustments.
too. As well as the revaluations that's pushed the tax burden down to the least among us who can afford it, for the most part. So I'm not sure this solves that problem, in the sense that we still have an expense issue, because, like I said, it's now it's what, 7 million now that we're asking people to pay, which is going to be valued differently. I think we need to do more, and I don't think we've solved that particular issue, even though we're very much aware of it. And thanks for all the stuff you guys did to present that to us. It was really appreciated. And I think it was well understood. And the issue we have is like every other town in Connecticut. Every other town is looking at increases like this. It is, period. And the way in which we, I think there's only one way in which we can adjust, and that is by making further cuts. And adjustments. And those adjustments come from where you guys have looked extensively at things. They'll come from where essentially the money is. And that's, public safety, that's Board of Education, capital spending. Those are where they'll come from if we decide to do that. And I think, absolutely think we should, in order to solve the problem that you guys have pointed out to us. So it's more of a statement than a question, John.
And I think thank you, Mr. Morrison. I think you know from your years of service on the Board of Finance that when I come here and speak, although people see me speaking, I'm representing I'm 1/6 of a 6-member board representing the budget that we were able to get through. And this year we have a bipartisan, we have a 3-3 board, 3 Democrat, 3 Republican. We don't have an odd number, so we have a little bit of a political thing, but we all worked well together. We put this budget in as a recommendation, and we do know that anything you do deeper than this, we're well aware that will start to impact human beings that work for the town, service levels expressed in human beings. Aside from 500,000 or so, you'll start to impact an actual human being working for the town. But this is the recommendation, but I understand where you're coming from. It is 5.9 is the largest I've seen. I've been doing this since 2009. I never ended with 5.9, never started with 5.9. 5.9 is what we would call a huge increase.
Okay, anybody else? Mike,
Thank you. Thank you, Mr.
Mike Del
Chairman.
Santo.
John, great job, as usual, explaining everything. One question I do have about the roofs.
Yeah.
You had said something that the council has to look into. You talking about municipal building roofs versus school roofs?
No,
School roofs, those are all right.
no, the roofs were in the, forward-looking projects. These are just things coming up. Because Hatton, Strong, those roofs are knocking on the door. The things the council should be looking at from our perspective is looking for some synergies with Board of Ed, looking for maybe some movement on self-insurance if we go to another carrier. We look for some overall, like a win-win. You gotta, works for the employee, works for the town, and really looking at the Barnes Museum as an opportunity. Does the town want to carry it? If we do, what's the true cost? We can't hide from we have to decide, do we want it? And we can't hide from the cost. And the other thing I mentioned is the fire department, which is huge. And the fire department all comes back to, and I mean, the question has never been posed this way, but what level of service does the town want? And I don't know the answer, and I haven't worked on it in this regard, but do we want 12-minute response times, 15-minute response times? How many people and what's the cost? Do we want an 8-minute response time? Okay. How many people, what's the cost? Do we want a 5-minute response time? Then we need new firehouses. What's the cost? Each level of service will have a different cost. Rather than just saying there's only one standard, the National Fire Protection Agency standard, and we got to meet it, we could look and say, what standard do you, as the leaders of council, want to hit? And then the fire department and commission can come back and say, okay, if that's what you want, this is what it will take. So we have some variation in the service level, and not just say fire cost X. It'd be fire at this level, fire at this other level, and the community could decide what level of service we want to put out. And you have to consider firefighter safety. You can't go so thin that you don't have the 2 in, 2 out. A firefighter doesn't feel safe when they go into a building that 2 people aren't standing out there ready to cover them. They shouldn't even go in by their rules. So all kinds of things, but it's service level, and cost. Decide it, and then work to staff towards it or build towards it.
John, let's give Vice Chair Clark, who's on the phone. Is there any questions, Jen, that you may have since you're remote?
I do not, thank you.
Okay, thanks. Anybody else have questions? If you could just go back to your last slide, I'm gonna wrap it up. The slide that you had with the forward-looking, you had the insurance, self-insurance, you had Barnes, synergies, yep. You know, I'll just say, go back, yep. So things that the council can look at, and we had the similar discussion at our last budget, and I'll kind of say it again here. Synergistic opportunities with Board of Ed, human resources, maintenance, if it's a town-wide, service of some kind versus a BOE service and a town government service, self-insurance with a new carrier, that stuff won't be done with this budget. That stuff will have to be looked at in the future, because
Right.
you can't do that in 1 month's time. That's there's a lot of stakeholders involved there. We've talked about self-insurance. We'd want to get some of the union representatives involved in some of the discussions early on and start making some decisions there. And, when we talk about cuts as well, I think we have to realize that you can't cut your way out of a problem. If you have a problem, merely making cuts doesn't fix the problem. We have fixed contracts in place. So when you talk about a 5.9% increase, 5.9 will be, if you make cuts, it'll be 5.9 on a little bit lower number, but the 5.9 is still there. Because, you're still gonna have contractual obligations the next year. That percentage doesn't change. The absolute value does, but the percentage doesn't change. So whatever we do, up, down, or indifferent, if we wanna see change, it has to be done in concert with different ways of looking at things. So I'll just leave it at that.
I agree, and I wanted to add one more point. When we do our work, it would be remiss of us not to have looked at everything. And all of our work is done in public. So sometimes we mention, oh, we could reduce this function. We can take a person out of this function. Those are healthy conversations to have, but sometimes observers have observed us and they would say, what are they thinking? So we just want to tell the public that we looked at all kinds of things, and in looking at them, a lot of stuff was mentioned. In the end, we came out where we came out with the recommendation. But it would be absolutely wrong of us not to say, what would a $3 million cut do to education? What would happen if we got rid of 5 town employees here or there? Those conversations were had, and they were had in the public eye, and some people got a little anxiety, especially if you're one of those people, or if you see the world differently. But our job was to look at everything, and all 6 members did a good job and looked at everything.
Yeah, and certainly it's a tough year. We got our work cut out for us. So with that, why don't we open it up to the public here for, maybe the superintendent. Steve, is there anything you wanted to add? You good? Okay. So why don't we open it up to the public? If there's anybody who is a resident in town or is employed by the town, you are free to come on up, or if you own a business in town, come on up. You can take 5 minutes. Town clerk will keep us on track. Just please state your name and address for the record.
Scott Lee, 310 North Main Street, proud fire chief of the Southington Fire Department.
Thanks for coming, Chief.
No, thanks for having me. Good evening. In the interest of working collaboratively and acknowledging the Board of Finance's concerns, we're prepared to accept 2 of their recommendations. The removal of the station alerting system from the capital plan. Our current system is failing and is unreliable. However, working with the IT department, we're developing an alternative as a stopgap, and we're hoping to pursue grant funding for that project. We'll also accept a recommendation to freeze the assistant chief position for an additional 8 months and manage that delay administratively. I will work to continue to diligently maintain the administrative functions until we can fund this much-needed position. These are not insignificant concessions. They represent real operational impacts and a conscious effort on our part to reduce immediate financial pressure on the town. But I want to be equally clear. These concessions were made so we do not compromise frontline service delivery. This is where the line is. The request to reinstate 3 firefighters is fundamentally different. This is not a capital project. This is not a delayed administrative hire. This is about whether or not we can safely and effectively respond to emergencies in this community. We funded the plan, and now we're ignoring it. The town paid for a professional fire department master plan as well as a strategic plan that was conducted by Emergency Services Consulting. This was an $80,000 investment. That plan clearly identified the need for increased staffing. Choosing not to fund these positions means we disregard the data we paid for. We accept operating below recommended levels. At this point, this is no longer a financial decision, it's a policy decision to accept increased risk. The data is clear, the demand is outpacing our staffing. 2,600 calls annually, 435 motor vehicle accidents, not just on the interstate highways. Increasing overlapping incidents, we average 15% of 2 or more active incidents occurring simultaneously. We are now routinely in a position where our units are already committed. The next call depends on outside resources or a delayed response. Mutual aid is no longer supplemental, it is covering our baseline staffing gaps. We are not meeting national standards. National Fire Protection Association's consensus standard NFPA 1720 requires an effective response force of 15 to 17 members assembled in 9 minutes 90% of the time for a 2,000 square foot home with no basement. This is not the average home design in our community either. Right now, we cannot consistently meet these benchmarks with our on-duty and volunteer staffing alone. We rely on other towns to assemble the minimum personnel needed to operate. OSHA compliance is not optional. Occupational Safety and Health Administration requires 2 in and 2 out for interior operations. With current staffing, crews may be forced to delay entry, and critical life-saving actions are postponed. This is a known documentable exposure, not a hypothetical. We are shifting costs to other communities. Recent incidents demonstrate this reality. Meriden Fire Department and Bristol Fire Department are routinely providing engine companies, chief officers, and 8 to 9 personnel combined. That is often 30 to 50% of our fireground staffing. We also utilize other communities to provide coverage to our town when we are committed at an incident. Plainville Fire Department, Cheshire Fire Department, and the New Britain Fire Department. Financial reality of estimated $150 to $250 per hour per firefighter. Most incidents average 2 to 4 hours. So one fire can represent $5,000 to $10,000 in labor costs absorbed by neighboring towns. We are balancing our budget, increasing their costs, reducing their coverage. Not funding positions does not save money, it increases overtime, it drives backfill and holdovers, and creates cost volatility. Adding the 3 firefighters begins to stabilize staffing, it begins to reduce overtime pressure, and it improves safety and operational efficiency. This is not cost control, not cost growth. This is a known risk decision. If these positions are not reinstated, we're knowingly operating below national standards, delaying critical operations, relying on outside agencies for minimum staffing, ignoring a professional study, a taxpayer-funded study. This is not unforeseen risk, this is accepted risk. In closing, we have made concessions. Removal of a capital project, delaying a needed chief officer position that has always been filled, and these decisions reduce cost. This is where we are asking the council not to reduce the capability. Reinstating these 3 firefighters aligns with the plans the taxpayers funded, brings us closer to national standards, reduces hidden and shifted costs, and ensures we can meet our responsibility to our community. This is not expansion, this is correcting a gap we already know exists. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief.
Rick Hart, 139 Summit Street in Plantsville. I'm also the chief of the Bristol Fire Department. Chief Lee pretty much summed up everything I was going to say. Right now, the Southington Fire Department is operating well below national standards. And I'm glad Mr. Leary brought up what kind of service does Southington want to provide its taxpayers. You don't have a choice. The NFPA 1720 is explicit in its staffing and deployment. Suburban areas, which we are, is a minimum staffing of 10 firefighters within 10 minutes. Fire suppression organization, and I quote 4.1 of 1720, fire suppression operations shall be organized to ensure that the fire department's fire suppression capabilities includes personnel, equipment, and other resources to deploy fire suppression resources in such a manner that the needs of the organization are met. As of right now, that's not happening. I was with the mayor of Bristol this morning, and she's frustrated with us constantly coming into Southington. She's tired of subsidizing the Southington Fire Department, the Bristol Fire Department, New Britain Fire Department, Meriden Fire Department, Plainville, Cheshire, Wallingford are rewarding your bad behavior by allowing you to be negligent, and consciously negligent, mind you, because this isn't the first time this has been brought to your attention, in not providing adequate staffing. I just so happened to be next to Chief Lee when he was having a conversation with the town manager who's told him, and I overheard the conversation, that you're all set, you're gonna get your 3 guys. Obviously, he was lying. As a resident, I have to pay for garbage collection. What do we expect from our government if we can't fund our public safety? Is Southington going to cover workers' compensation issues? If one of my firefighters gets hurt here, that incurs overtime costs paid by the Bristol taxpayer, workers' comp paid by the Bristol taxpayer. Southington isn't going to pay for it. What about long-term issues, exposures? We were at Yard Metal for a fire. Long-term exposures create long-term health issues in firefighters. It's a known fact. Is Southington going to cover those costs for a Bristol, Cheshire, New Britain, Meriden firefighter who comes to bail you guys out? Howard Avenue, you had a fire where a Mayday was called, an incident commander's worst nightmare, where a firefighter's lost or injured in a fire. By the grace of God, that ended positively. Someday it's not going to, because you don't have the staffing. The NFPA it's a consensus standard. So God forbid something happens, a good lawyer is going to pick up the 1710, even though it's a consensus standard. He's going to say, why aren't you following this? Town manager Rick Adone's a lawyer. I think that's what he'd do. Why aren't you following a nationally recognized consensus standard? There's Southington firefighters. Actually, one just started in Bristol today. Because he feels safer working in the city of Bristol because they're committed to staffing. He feels safer because he knows he's going to have the adequate staffing. There are 2 firefighters from Southington that are on the eligibility list for New Britain who plan on jumping ship as soon as the opportunity arises because they're going to be safer because they're 1710 compliant, which is a stricter standard. So, do the right thing. You all want to have your pictures taken with the firefighters and the police officers when it's election time, but you don't want to support them in the back rooms or in public when they really need it. So reinstate the 3. Doesn't get a lot, but it's a step in the right direction. Thank you.
Chief Hart, thanks for coming out. Next.
Good evening. My name is Ed Crandall, 27 Loomis Road in Bolton. I'm the president of the Southington Firefighters Union. I'm here tonight to support Chief's leave request that you restore the 3 firefighters the Board of Finance cut. Over the past year, we have been told there is support for 3 new hires mid-budget year, January 2026. We were told that if Southington didn't get the new positions through the SAFER grant, Board of Finance and Town Council would support mid-year hires in the current budget year. Council Chairperson Chaplinsky, you personally assured us of this when you met with all 4 shifts. Southington was not awarded the SAFER grant, yet when it came time to hire the mid-year positions, Board of Finance and Town Council refused. Put them in next year's budget, SFD was told, so the chief did. Again, Board of Finance refused. Instead, Board of Finance member Salerno publicly suggested not only not hiring, but closing a fire station to cut overtime. How do we go from hiring 3 desperately needed positions to talk of closing a firehouse? To be very clear, these 3 firefighters cut overtime. They enable the chief to not replace the first firefighter off on leave across all 4 shifts. These new positions do not increase services. They do not get us any closer to opening Station 3 24/7, a critical need. They cut overtime. You would not ask a baseball team to play a game with half the players still in the locker room. Yet you expect us to provide life-saving service while denying us the ability to fully field a team. SFD loses 1/3 of our on-duty staffing nights and weekends when the weekday engine in Milldale goes off duty. The volunteer companies now provide an average of 3 members or less per call 24/7. There is no longer any discernible difference between volunteer response weekdays versus nights and weekends. The Connecticut State Comptroller issued a report last year that found Connecticut has lost nearly 2/3 of their volunteer firefighters statewide in the last 8 years alone. Our fire department is completely dependent on mutual aid to provide basic functions at all building fires, including a 1-room fire. This is because understaffing, not lack of training or experience. We cannot provide the level of service our customers, your constituents, rightfully expect without significant outside support. For several years, the town has been in possession of a fire department master plan. It explains in detail how SFD is critically understaffed. The study cost over $80,000 of taxpayer money. Why is it being ignored? The national standard for arrival on scene for 90% of calls is 5 minutes and 20 seconds. In a survey of town residents for the master plan, respondents' highest priority of their fire department was an arrival time of 5 minutes or less. For the month of March 2026, the average arrival time of career units in Southington was 10 minutes, 44 seconds. For volunteer apparatus, it was 16 minutes, 32 seconds, double and triple the national average for a fire department. double and triple what your constituents have stated is their most important priority. How these times are acceptable to the Town Council and Board of Finance is beyond me. And yet, when we ask for the staffing help we need to reduce response times, you say no. You said no in January. Board of Finance said no again last month. How do you explain that to a resident who has to wait 2 to 3 times longer than they should for a critical service? You cannot respond safely without adequate staffing. You cannot provide the expected service level without adequate staffing. We support Chief Lee's staffing request. We ask that you say yes.
Thank you for coming up. Good evening.
Good evening to you as well, thank you. Tim Wilk, 144 Scenic Drive. I'm not just a Southington resident, I'm also a member of the Board of Fire Commissioners and a retired police officer in town. During my tenure as a police officer, I had the privilege of working very closely with the fire department in various capacities. I can attest to their professionalism and commitment to duty. As a member of the Board of Fire Commissioners, I've become more closely acquainted with the personnel and many of the problems that plague the department. In the interest of time, I'd like to speak specifically on the need for additional personnel that Chief Lee clearly articulated. A few months ago, I had took advantage of the opportunity, to ride along with one of the captains. He demonstrated to me how quickly a routine fire in a multi-unit building can exhaust available resources at the current staffing level. The scenario he presented was a best-case scenario at that. I've learned about the mutual aid response to Southington fires and how often we've had to rely on that critical assistance from surrounding towns. Oddly, it seems the towns that provide that support don't seem to have the staffing concerns that we have in Southington. That mutual support is supposed to be a supplement that enhances our capability to fight fires, not a substitute for lack of staffing. The mutual aid support comes at an expense to each individual town, as you well heard. So I ask, how much longer can we ask these towns to continue absorbing the cost for our shortcomings? How long can we hold our breath and hope that the next catastrophe doesn't happen here in our town? I've been involved in many dangerous situations and critical incidents myself, and I can attest to how quickly those things they can happen. Last week, I took the initiative to sit in on an exit interview with Captain Martin, and I'm glad I did. I hope I have your attention because you need to hear this. He's made the conscious and professional decision to go back to the starting line, so to speak. By that I mean he's leaving his career here as a captain to go back as a firefighter in Bristol. Why would he be willing to go from captain back to firefighter, you might ask? In his words, staffing, safety, and benefits. He'd previously turned down what he described as his dream job in another town just to stay in Southington. He was led to believe that things would change. And what I found to be most impactful, again in his own words, quote unquote, he no longer wanted to be in a position where he couldn't keep people safe because of staffing. Chief Lee and Chief Crandall had nothing but flattering things to say about Captain Martin and emphasized what an impact it would have on the department with his departure. It's my understanding that there are also others considering lateral moves, and this is the reality. As to the decisions made to reduce the assistant chief's salary and freeze the position, let's be logical. What's the incentive, especially for in-house candidates, to take that promotion? External candidates can certainly make more money. Chief Lee already wears several hats and has to delegate to his subordinates to make up this vacancy. I was on the phone with Chief Lee this past holiday weekend talking business. That's both a testament to his level of commitment and the unfair and unnecessary burden that he now bears. I'm afraid if current trends continue, that we're going to make employment here so unappealing that nobody will want the job. Chairman of the Board of Fire Commissioners, Ed Costello, and Fire Commissioner Ben Hogan both just recently resigned. The writing is on the wall. Call volume's up and volunteer staffing continues to decline, which seems to be consistent everywhere. If we don't get ahead of this trend, with adequate staffing will be thrust into a situation that may have an even greater financial impact or worse, cost someone their life. Our firefighters are not asking for anything that would directly benefit themselves, such as raises, more time off, or fringe benefits. They're simply asking for additional personnel to help keep themselves, the residents, and the guests of the town safe. We are all on notice. I don't believe that Chief Lee has embellished his data at all. I don't envy the difficult decisions the Board of Finance and the council have to make. And I implore you to take the things that Chief Lee, myself, and the others who spoke before me into careful consideration and take this necessary step to ensure everyone's safety. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner. Good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Chris Iverson, 127 Burritt Street, number 2, Plantsville.
Welcome.
Thank you. Allow me to start by thanking our community's brave firefighters for their comments here tonight. I'm here to talk to you about the Barnes Museum. When I was younger, I completed my Eagle Scout project at the Barnes Museum. I've been a volunteer there for the better part of 10 years, and every year I personally raise several $1,000s in funds to support the museum and its mission and its role in our community. The museum is strategically valuable to our town as an event venue, a gallery for the historic artifacts inside of it, and as a launch pad for our neighbors to explore their interest in history. However, its value is held back by significant preservation and maintenance needs. In many areas on the exterior of the building, the paint is peeling, exposing 150-year-old wood siding and millwork, which in several areas is crumbling and rotten. It's my understanding that the town engineer has documented additional structural concerns that require immediate attention in an email to the town manager and others. I encourage each of you to speak to the town engineer about his assessment of the museum's maintenance and preservation needs, and to visit the museum yourselves if you have not done so recently. Because these issues worsen each year that they go unaddressed, it will ultimately cost our community more money to further defer necessary maintenance at the museum. Accordingly, I implore each of you to seriously consider the museum's request for $50,000 to fund preservation and maintenance in 2026. The museum represents a very small portion of the town's overall budget, but it's an extremely visible part of our community. Unfortunately, private organizations like the Friends of the Barnes Museum and community foundations cannot come to the museum's rescue alone. Even with grants and gifts, this council's support is necessary to maintain and restore the museum to the standard our community deserves. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. Good evening.
Good evening. My name is Shema Green. I live at 67 Memorial Drive. I'm here tonight regarding the Board of Finance's budget proposal for our town. More specifically, I'd like to speak about the proposed budget for education, in which the Board of Finance proposes a $1.6 million cut. As most of you have figured out by now, I'm a research-based individual. I use research in my job as a reading interventionist, in my role as mom, and lately for town issues. I took a closer look at the budget that the Board of Education, Mr. Medancy, put together to see what was in it. I compared it to last year's budget. I looked at questions the Board of Education had regarding various items and the explanations that went with it. Here's what I found. The budget is lean. There's nothing extra, no added programs. The huge driver of this budget are contractual obligations, salaries and insurance costs for employees. The budget isn't about adding new programs or asking for more. It's about maintaining what we already have. It's like going to the grocery store and buying the same exact items, but the bill is higher. Or filling up your gas tank and paying more just to get to the same places. The need hasn't changed, the cost has. In cutting this education budget, there will be negative consequences for this community. Because the reality is, when you reduce any school budget, you're not cutting extras, you're cutting people. As I've said about our budget, it's largely made up of salaries and services, so a reduction of this size inevitably leads to fewer staff, larger class sizes, and reduced support for students. And I think it's important to acknowledge something else that often goes unseen. Teachers are already doing more with less every single year. If you know a teacher, and many of us do, you'll likely see our Amazon wish list start circulating in July and August on social media. Those aren't for extras or luxuries. Those are for basic classroom supplies and materials that teachers are purchasing out of their own pockets. That speaks volumes about the kind of educators we have in Southington. They are deeply committed to their students and determined to create classrooms where every child can succeed. But there comes a point where dedication cannot make up for a lack of funding. We cannot continue to rely on teachers to fill the gaps of a shrinking budget. Research consistently shows that larger class sizes lead to decreased student achievement, less individual attention, and fewer opportunities for meaningful engagement. One teacher simply cannot provide the same level of instruction and support to 28 students as they can to 20. And when that happens, it's our students that lose out. But this impact does not stop at the classroom door. It affects the entire town. Strong schools are one of the main reasons families choose to move to and stay in a community like Southington. When school quality declines, whether through larger class sizes, reduced programming, or fewer supports, property values are impacted and the overall appeal of the town begins to decline. So while this may look like a $1.6 million savings on paper, the long-term cost to our community is much greater. We also need to be honest about who's affected the most. Larger class sizes and reduced supports affect our most vulnerable students, those who need extra help, whether academically, socially, or emotionally. These are not optional services. They're essential to ensuring students all can succeed. I've said this every time I've been up here the past few months. I want what's best for all students in Southington. A budget is a reflection of priorities, and our students should not be where we choose to scale back. We owe it to our students, the future of Southington, to look everywhere in our town budget to scale back before we look at their classrooms. Thank you.
Thank you for coming out. Good evening.
Good evening, thank you. Pamela J. DiPaolo, 54 Delahunty Drive in Southington, president of DiPaolo Realty. I have some prepared comments, but having heard the fire department speak, first of all, I'd like to say I completely support the fire department, and they should definitely, without a doubt, absolutely replace those firefighters. The safety of Southington residents, and in fear if they're going to have a fire or not. And I've had plenty of cases in my former business, DiPaolo Furniture downtown, where I had to seek the services of the fire department, and they came right to our assistance very quickly, and we are indebted to them. So please replace those firefighters and do it. Don't think about it anymore, just do it, okay? As far as the Barnes Museum, the gentleman who remarked about that, we should be supporting, that's a cultural cornerstone of our town. You drive through Southington, what do you see when you're approaching from the north? At the YMCA, you see the Barnes Museum. So for heaven's sakes, $50,000 is a drop in the bucket to ask to keep that maintained in the roofing and sided or painted or whatever has to be done. In making a community decision to approve the enormous expenditure of $184.3 million, $0.3 million, plus demolition of Daranoski School with the district share at $104.3 million, according to the newspaper, that's what I read. I'm not sure if this is correct, but I would like to comment on several things regarding the school proposal.
Pam, the only thing I want to say is, we're in a public hearing for the budget, not the school
okay.
referendum. That's
All right.
so if you want to make a brief comment, go ahead, but
okay.
you really need to limit it to the budget
Just
because
to the
we're in
budget.
a public
Okay.
hearing.
Okay, all right.
Thanks.
So the budget, I think the cuts that were made are reasonable cuts. I think that the $193 million is reasonable, except for the fire department. I think that should be replaced definitely, and possibly the police position. I think there was one position that was cut there. That should also. That's about public safety and public health. So those should be replaced. But other than that, I think that the rest of the Board of Education budget, I think whatever cuts were made there, everybody has to suffer equally here. So in the Board of, I want to comment on the regarding the Board of Education, you have salaries that are, they have increases every year that are built into their contracts, 3.8%. When I was working in my own business, I didn't get 3.8% every year. I got the same money year after year for 25 or 30 years. So, I understand that the teachers are giving a lot, and I think what they really should do is pay the teachers a little more, and the administrators, I think they should pay them a little less. Thank you.
Thanks, Pam. Thanks for understanding. We had a public hearing on the school project, so I don't want to violate any issues there. Thank you so much. You got it. Mr. Badgley, great to see you, Captain.
Great to see you, Captain. Doug Badgley, 1014 Old Turnpike Road in Plantsville. I'm the captain of Engine Company 2. these guys aren't lying to you when we need more manpower. I was talking from the volunteer side. When I joined 30 years ago, during the day, we have 8, 10, 12 guys. The mom and pop shops, where the guys would leave work to show up to go to fires. Nowadays, I'm sitting in the truck waiting for a crew. The manpower, they need the manpower. There's been plenty of times, like I said, I get to the firehouse, I'm very fortunate, my job lets me leave my work. I get it there, I wait, I'm lucky I get one guy. We're not even making a dent on what they need for manpower. So please consider reinstating the 3 guys they need. Thank you.
Thank you, Captain. Good evening.
Good evening. Sean Grindle, 149 Rethel Street. Good evening, Town Council members, and thank you for having this public hearing on the budget. Obviously, it's my spring break, and there's nothing I'd rather be doing than listening to Mr. Leary again for many, many nights in a row. Some of my colleagues might be in the Bahamas, but I'm happy to be here.
Glad to have you.
I want to start with something factual. Southington Public Schools are performing well. Our students are achieving, our educators are delivering results, even when this town is underfunding education. Over the past several years, we've seen measurable academic growth. Our standardized scores in both ELA and math have trended upwards since the pandemic. Graduation rates remain high, consistently around 95%. Participation and performance in AP courses continue to increase. Our students are earning college credits, industry certifications, and recognitions across academics, arts, and athletics. These are not abstract wins. They are outcomes. This is what success tangibly looks like. And this is happening because of what we invest on the front end. Strong teaching, manageable class sizes, student supports, consistent programming. So my question is, and the question that we should all be asking tonight, if this system is producing these high-level results, why are we cutting it? Because that's exactly what the Board of Finance has proposed. A $1.6 million reduction to the Board of Education budget, a budget that started extremely thin and was already cut once. Let's be honest about what that means. This is not a line item adjustment. This is not efficiency. This is a giant step backwards. It's going to mean fewer teachers, larger class sizes, fewer academic and behavioral supports, reduced opportunities for students who are still working to catch up from the pandemic disruptions, and it comes at the worst possible time. This budget is being debated while residents are absorbing the impact of reevaluations. I understand the pressure. I don't envy you, and I understand that this is going to be a difficult budget process. But difficulty does not excuse bad priorities, because at the exact same moment that we're asking the community to consider the major investment in school facilities, we are simultaneously cutting the funding that makes those schools function at a high level. You cannot say you support a 21st century education and then vote to reduce it. You cannot claim fiscal responsibility while undermining the very system that drives long-term economic stability. Education is not a cost center. It's the foundation of this town's future workforce, property values, and quality of life. And let's be clear about something else. Over the past few budget cycles since COVID, we've relied on temporary funding and asked our schools to stretch every dollar. They have done that. We've adapted, and they've delivered the results anyway. Now, instead of stabilizing that progress, we are putting resources and pulling resources away. This is not conservative governments, it's short-sightedness. If we believe in accountability, then we need to apply it here. The Board of Ed has produced results. The data shows it, the outcomes show it. So why are they being punished with cuts? If anything, success should be reinforced and not undermined. We must invest in our schools, not just the building, but the people, the programs, and the classrooms. Facilities do not educate children, educators do. So tonight, this is not just a budget decision, it's a statement on who we are as a town. Do we invest in what's working, that so many have toiled over the years to build back, or do we cut education even further like some on this dais want? I urge you to restore funding to make it clear that in Southington, we do not try to save face on budgets on the backs of our students. Thank you.
Thank you for coming out.
Anne Marie Connedy, 1237 Mount Vernon Road. This in no means is against the children in the town of Southington. but I propose you cut more from the Board of Education. We are a whole town. Right now, the Board of Education takes 70% of our budget. 30% goes to our town. What I've heard tonight is it's affecting our public safety. It should be a 50-50 split. Something's got to give. The money's just not there for the people to pay anymore. And as I've said many times right here, you are in the process of collecting long overdue sewer bills. My prediction is you're not going to be getting the taxes you need in July because people just don't have the money. So the town has been cut so much over the years that we now only put about 30% of the budget toward running the town. One example, our trucks at the highway department are so old, we get our parts from eBay until we can't anymore. Maintenance of our roads, parks, etc. are crucial. So when you call in a problem and are told you have to wait because of broken equipment, do not call the town manager or the town employees. Call the members of the finance board and the town council that cut town requests but refuse to cut more from the Board of Education and keep calling and calling and calling. Another example, in order for the PD to get 2 more officers for public safety, the chief had to barter. He decided he would barter with animal control and get rid of one of the animal control officers. I am not questioning his choice, but I will point out some potential issues. Our animal control services over 40,000 people for both domestic animals and wildlife as it relates to public safety. As a Connecticut licensed rehabber, a volunteer for over 5 years at Animal Control, and a founding member of Friends of Southington Animal Control, I cannot tell you how important it is for trained officers to handle calls. We are faced with new diseases from all animals every day and special ways to handle them. Every animal will attack and bite if threatened, and it requires specialized training for this. Yes, now you will call the non-emergency PD line to handle animal calls when the day officer is off duty. However, it will take them much more time to respond. Many of them are not only afraid of dogs, but used to see them with wildlife. I've seen it firsthand. It's like, oh no, don't let it get near me. Many of them are not even vaccinated for rabies. So should one of them be bitten by a rabid animal, the town is liable. So you'll be dealing with those costs too. So again, I will tell you, keep calling and calling and calling until they answer your call. Yes, you will be dealing with some rude dispatchers. I have on many occasions. When that happens, talk to them the way they talk to you. They'll calm down. Since Friends of Southington Animal Control was established, it has raised upwards of $75,000 and funded improvements to the facility, which will be required by the state by 2029, that would have fallen upon taxpayers. So Animal Control has tried to help out the town. In closing, I want to, and I'm going to support firefighters, police officers, anything on the town side, maintenance, public safety. The Board of Ed's got to give too. We might be getting better scores, but I don't see them in the top rated when I read newspapers. In closing, I want to address the $84 million school referendum you want to also throw at us in November, where no grant money is guaranteed, so it could ultimately cost taxpayers the full $84 million. I know this is not what this is for. It is not that we don't recognize the problems. We just don't have any more money right now. I will still advocate for a no vote in November. Thank you.
Thank you for coming out. Mr. Urso, good evening.
Good evening. My name is Al Urso. I live at 73 River Street. I was a volunteer in Southington for 38 years. I love fire service. I read a lot about fire service. I heard some things tonight that I didn't like at all. The thing I did hear is John Larry saying, let's look at our fire department. I've been saying that for 10 years. We have to look at it. We're a town of 43,000. I think we have 32 firefighters. Newington is a town 10,000 or less, and they're all volunteer. I'm not saying we should be all volunteer by any means, but we have to look. There's something wrong here. I'm sorry the mayor feels the way she does, the mayor of Bristol. But Southington has responded mutual aid to Bristol. I don't know how many times, but I keep track of the Southington numbers, and I read a lot about fire service. So, yes, we've used Bristol, and we have responded to Bristol and other towns, Plainville, Cheshire. Our tanker goes quite a ways for those towns that have no hydrant. Mutual aid is part of the fire service. Calls are up. That's the first time I've heard that in a long time. I'm not sure that's correct. I've never heard it from our fire chief. Calls are up. NFPA response time. Yes, I Googled Connecticut NFPA response time. I think Google is the new encyclopedia. It was an AI response, and I asked the question, how many Connecticut towns make the NFPA 1720 standard? The answer I got was Groton, Connecticut, and Waterbury. I don't know what else to do. I don't think many towns or cities, in fact, most of our towns are all volunteer. The biggest part of them are all volunteer. But to make an NFPA standard, we would have to hire 32 firemen. I'm not sure what the cost is. And it's a standard. It's nice to have. So we have to think about that. If we want to make an NFPA standard, we have to spend a lot of money, a lot of money. I have a lot of numbers here. I've shared them before. 70% of our calls are during the daytime hours. Right now, we have 24 firemen sitting at home, and they want to hire 3 more. That would mean we would have 27 firemen sitting at home. This is not the best shift. 70% of our calls are during the daytime hours. I don't see any budget numbers. I'd like to see $100,000 spent in recruiting volunteers. Hire a marketing team. Tell them what good it is. I'm a proud volunteer. I made some good friends. There's a lot of reason to be a volunteer. Will you get volunteer on days? No, not since Pratt Whitney left. You can't get, so bring more men on days, career men. Maybe if you get 12, now we're close to the NFPA standard. But you got to do a lot more hiring if you want to reach the NFPA standard. I think that's it. I wasn't really prepared. The other thing is statistics I've had, and I've shared them over 10 years. Chairman Riccio was the chairman at the time, and every other town council member was not on the town council. When I first brought this up 10 years ago, and I've been discussing it through emails, it's not easy to get up here and speak for anybody. Some do much better than others. I don't enjoy it one bit. I'm sorry they all left, but they can see it on the video. And our chief, or the Bristol chief, I read this in the paper, his 2026 budget, he asked for 8 firemen for Bristol. He was denied. I know he's a Southington resident, but I mean, would we want to be like Bristol? I mean, I'm sorry that Captain Martin left for Bristol. I wish him the best of luck. I still think we could hire firemen with a 12-hour shift. Look at the numbers. Somebody do it. Don't hire another company. Good God. That company is made up of career firemen. Did you think they were going to come in here and say you're overstaffed? That company is made up of career firemen, ECSI. They made some good points. If you look real hard, we don't need a firehouse on River Street. You want to look at that? You want to bring it up to $80,000? There's not enough population. It borders Plainville. It was a good volunteer company. The cost of a 30 volunteer company is nowhere near having 3 paid men up there 24 hours a day. You can throw a rock and hit Plainville. You got to look at that.
Thank you, Mr. Urso.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Good evening.
Good evening. My name's Dave Canute.
Hi, Mr. Canute.
I'm a vice chairman of the Fire Commission for the town of Southington. I've spent over 40 years on both the park department and the fire board. I was a 23-year volunteer, only retired when I started working out of town and couldn't make the fires anymore. Mr. Urso is totally mistaken. I have devoted all my time since I've become a commissioner on the retention and recruitment committee of the thing. I've been to fairs, truck things, operations at the high school, career fairs. We put signs out. We've changed how we try to recruit. We even sought about 6 or 7 years ago of how do we enhance what we give the volunteers to see if that could entice them. The labor board from the state of Connecticut told us we couldn't do what we were doing because if we paid them over the small pittance that we have them come out to fight and put their life on the line, fires, then they wouldn't be volunteers. And it would put the town open for all kinds of other things. We've tried everything that we can to recruit volunteers. It is not a Connecticut problem. It's not a Southington problem. It's a national problem. Mr. Urso is mistaken that most of the fire companies in the state of Connecticut are volunteer. That has passed by a long time ago. My only reason for coming here tonight is it's not about dollars. And I am disappointed that there were promises made that we would hire these people. But now that you've put it off so far ahead, you're talking about lives, whether it be our citizens or one of the firefighters. And I hate to stand here and tell you how we had a May Day that they talked about that came out safely. I hate to talk about if we had a May Day and it didn't come out safely. And I had to go face 2 families and say why their fathers didn't come home, because we didn't have those firefighters. We do not have enough people, and you can't just go to the days. We are facing thousands of ambulance calls all the time now. AMR is not capable of servicing the town of Southington anymore. When I remember when AMR first came in here, it was said they would have 3 ambulances available for Southington all the time now. We are constantly being called as first responders. When that goes, 3 people go. That ties them up for all that call, and while they're on a medical call, they can't go to a fire or can't do anything else in that. It's all part of the draw of this, in that he talks about do away with Company 5. If we did away with that firehouse right now, how would we get at all the accidents and fires that happen in the Queen Street area? Mount Vernon Road, everything else in that. That fire company has a jump on all the rest of it. We couldn't make it from Main Street, or we couldn't make it from the Milldale Fire Department. We need to get Milldale open 24/7, and then have Company 5 open 24/7. We could be close to NFPA. I hate to even talk about the thing that, the report that we paid all that money for and everything else in that. We're not anybody else. We are Southington. But I'm telling you right now, as someone who's lived here for 76 years, has been a volunteer, has fought fires, tried to save lives, we need more men. 3 men is only a start, but with that 3 men, we can keep Company 3 open longer. We can also have an extra man that if somebody's out a day, we don't have to replace them. Now, if somebody's out a day or he's out 3 days or something, we have to pay overtime to bring them in. The union has said they would go along with that. So we've done everything we can. We've stretched it as far as we can. I've lost 2 chiefs, I lost 2 commissioners, and everything else because of promises unkept and everything else in that. I don't want to come here after we have a tragedy in this town and say, you should have hired the 3 firemen.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chairman. Is there anybody else who would like to come up and speak this evening? If there's anybody else who's going to speak, please come on up to the podium and line up. Good evening.
Susan Zabahansky, 28 Working Street. Got here in the nick of time, all the way from Rhode Island. I want to, you guys know, I'm always here advocating for budget cuts, and it's nice that many groups have unions that represent them, that have teachers or firefighters that represent them, but there's not many people out here representing the 40,000+ other people who are taxpayers in the town. You know, we hear that there's been cuts, and I noticed a couple of you corrected the word cut, because it's not a cut. The Board of Ed has had an increase in their budget every year, year over year, 5.12, 6.6. So the only thing that there is a cut to is the ask, the increased ask. Every year, the Board of Ed budget can never go down. That's state legislated unless we close a school. That's the only way the budget can be decreased, and that's only if they cut staff when the school closes. So I want to kind of put that on the record, because I think a lot of people hear cut and they think that the Board of Finance made cuts to an already, you know, a budget that's already existing. That's not the case. The same is true for the firefighters. I hate hearing that the town of Southington does not care about firefighters, because I know as a taxpayer in the last 5 to 6 years, we've added firefighters to the tune of, somebody corrected me last time, I think I said 3 and they said it was higher, 5 or maybe 5. So we've given the firefighters full-time staff year over year in the last few budgets. A couple were paid for initially by the SAFER grant, and then they are now being funded by the taxpayer. No one's here representing the people who can't pay their taxes or are losing their homes. No one's here representing the 20% senior citizen population that's in the town of Southington. And I work for animal control, and it saddens me that, you know, positions are being cut, but if we need 2 more patrolmen, we need 2 more patrolmen. It's the police department's job to figure out how to get them without burdening the taxpayer. And we all know there's waste. So I think by decreasing a budget, it forced them to look for the waste. Thank you.
Thank you for coming out. Anybody else? Going once? Zaya? Mr. Chairman?
Mr. Chairman, Councilman, members of the community, Mr. Leary, I want to thank you for letting me speak this evening. Zaya Oshana, 21 Alpine Trail, Plantsville. Every year we do hear it's a difficult year, and every year it has been a difficult year when you put budgets together, because we're talking about people's money. We're talking about tax dollars. I want to just tell a little bit about how we went about creating the Board of Education budget this year. As you know, Mr. Bedancy and his team over many months put together the ask for the Board of Education of where we are, and that is presented to the Board of Education members. We took that book this year of information and did it a little bit differently. We brought it home, spent a week reviewing that document, creating our questions in advance, not just at the workshop, but being able to put those questions out to the administration in advance, so that when we came to our workshop, it was actually a very productive working session. At the end, we passed the budget on a bipartisan manner. It made one change to the existing budget, where we took some teachers and paid for them with different funds, not the operating unit, operating budget funds. It's interesting, though, that when you look at our makeup of the Board of Education, it's a broad spectrum of people, as it should be, as all of our boards should be. Very conservative, some on the liberal side, some in the center, but it passed on a bipartisan basis, and I think that says a lot to do about what and how that budget was created and what it says for what we want for our town. And you said something really interesting, Mr. Chairman. You can't cut your way out of a problem. You have to fix the problem. You can't cut your way out of a problem. Do we have the best district in the state of Connecticut, the best school district in the state of Connecticut? No. We're pretty darn good. Do we spend the most on our students? No, we do not. And do we pay our teachers the most in the state of Connecticut? No, we don't. We're competitive. We're in the middle of the ranks there, but we certainly don't pay them the most, as a lot of people have led us to believe. Mr. Grindle, you said something really important, and another gentleman that I respect very highly said this my entire life. Buildings don't teach our students, teachers teach our students. We need to give our teachers the tools that they need and the environment that they need in order to teach our kids, to make them
what they're going to become in the future. Metrics, we always talk about metrics. What is a metric? What is our district doing, and how do you measure that? Mr. Grindle, I can't say it much better than you did just now, and the things that you put out there, but I'm from business, we look at metrics. And we always talk about test scores, right? Standardized test scores. I gotta be honest with you, standardized test scores, I mean, they're important because they're standardized tests and you have to take them. What we don't recognize is standardized test scores, the students that take the standardized tests realize that those tests don't go towards their GPA, it doesn't go towards their, anything with their evaluation of themselves. So they go take these tests. Do they put a lot of effort into it? I would have to say probably not. So I wouldn't put all of our eggs in that basket of how are our standardized test scores going, even though they're going up. I think what we should be looking at is look at the caliber of the students that we're graduating. Let's look at what they're doing. We're graduating college and career-ready students. Let's look at them 5 years out from upon graduation. Let's see where they are. And I think if we looked at some of those students, the vast majority of our students who go into the military, go into the trades, go into different business professions, I think we should be really proud of the district that we've created and the type of students that we're graduating out at the graduation levels that we're doing. Whether we have children in the district, grandchildren in the district, or no children in the district, it really is upon us to make sure that we do educate our community. It's up to us to educate our community. It's our duty and responsibility to educate our community. And we have created a solid educational system in the town of Southington. I think one of the things we need to look at is where do we as a town value education? What do we think we should be doing in terms of our education? We talk about it's not a cut to the budget that we're talking about, but when you're offering a budget that has nothing new, no new programs, no new teachers, no new anything. And we did ask for a couple of new things in there, and they've been probably pulled out at this point in terms of how do we help care for our students, make sure that we provide an environment that our students can learn and continue to grow in. When we look at that, I think we need to decide what is it that we want as a community? What is the type of education system we want for the town of Southington? I'm pretty proud of what we've put together over the last several years that I've been on the board, and I look back at previous Board of Educations over the years. Have the budgets gone up? Yeah, things cost more. When you have a level services budget and yet we're seeing an increase in several $1 million of that just for standard pay and benefits, that's the biggest bulk of what we're doing. That's the biggest bulk of what we're talking about here. It's not a matter of saying that we're giving exorbitant increases or exorbitant benefit programs to our community. I just think we need to look at where we want to take this. Times are tough, and it is a tough time. And I want to thank you guys. I want to thank Mr. Leary and your team for the work that you've done. I want to thank the members of the Board of Education for all the time they put into putting this budget together. We're open. If there's questions you guys have as this goes on and you deliberate, let us know. We'd be glad to get back to you with more.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Okay, anybody else who would like to come up this evening? If not, we will look for a motion. We're not actually going to table it. I think we're going to leave it open, right? We're not tabling it. We're going to leave the public hearing open, and we will continue this, so we're looking for a motion to adjourn from Mr. Del Santo. Second from Mr. Serafino. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay, thanks, everybody.